Hey, so this is Billy Raptor. In the interest of doing things which are highly mid 2000s, along with Pokemon, for instance, do they still make those? They might. This is a game named Survivor Series, based around another very much mid 2000s phenomenon. So this game has 3 difficulty levels, easy, medium, and hard. For this run through, we'll be on the medium difficulty, which is the default. Although in retrospect, the hard difficulty and the medium difficulty are basically the same. At least as we play it, it might be different for others. If you do things otherwise. But in any case, we'll be having a run through of the hard mode after this. But basically, we'll be running through this as The Undertaker, as you can see. And they begin on the show known as SmackDown. There are 2 major shows with separate rosters here. And basically what happens is that you win 3 titles there, then you go over to the next one and do the same thing, which might be slightly harder. But that's basically how that works, right? Anyway, so for this we'll be showing the SmackDown run, as well as interspersed matches from the Raw thing, rather than showing both of them, which could go on for a bit long and might not be entirely necessary, including the important matches from the next one and so on. Now, other than being, a fighting game, in this, the story mode, which we'll begin sort of in the middle of, but not really that far into. Along with, winning fights, there's also a popularity mechanic, which is basically measured on how many moves you do, and that the fight has some sort of semblance of being even, so the opponent gets some moves in, etc., etc. It's very elaborate and really doesn't make that much sense in the context of a fighting game, but anyway. Let's see, you sort of wonder about how many institutions are quite as insistent upon the activity going on with them being fake as the WWE. I mean, you don't have, for instance, cycling going on about how everybody's on drugs, or football going on about how, rugby is rubbish. But anyway, without further ado, so interestingly in this match, apart from the usual action, we have an occasion of interference in a singles match, or in brief, another wrestler, in this case Eddie Guerrero. You might have heard of him, he died. Intervenes, in this case seemingly not in favor of either contestant, but they're here now, so we'll just help our opponent to really for very little reason, but it probably helps us indirectly, and it isn't really going to help them because they are busy doing stuff, so let's just let them. So anyway, due to this other person seemingly getting in the way, this is actually something which is vaguely interesting, but seems not to happen that much, especially for very long stretches of the game later on. So that's slightly annoying. Anyway, you sort of figure that along with some sort of mechanisms that would create some sense of that being motivated by plot, storyline, or some sort of tensions or continuity, you could actually make something in this format which is, well, fairly decent or kind of good, depending. Curiously enough, though, where these things have gone from here in terms of modern games dealing with this sort of thing is significantly more worse. So, yeah. At a certain point, you might complain about it being more of a soap opera than a thing of itself, but nonetheless, that's basically the whole appeal of the video game is made in that direction right now, and really you sort of wonder if those aren't, especially in the mid-2000s, the most important part of the whole franchise. If they're special bars you can see on the top of the screen along with the particular resource names is full, then they can kick out if any pin or escape from a submission move, which would otherwise cause them to lose the match. However, after this they'll probably be fairly vulnerable if they're forced to take recourse to that. So in terms of general mechanics, there's obviously punching and kicking as we are seeing right now. Other than that, you grapple if you, well, basically were forced to do so. Then you get to perform a move on them, hopefully, otherwise you might escape from the grapple. That, however, depletes some of their special counter, and when that's no, they can't escape from grapples quite as easily, especially if they're tired. Or alternatively can counter, but that's generally fairly match stuff. This, which move is used, is affected by direction keys. You can also cause people to run around or control their position a bit. And that you can also run, but what reason you would have to be doing so might vary. Once they're done, you can attempt various moves which would effectively equate to attempts to end the match, but might just lead up to it or make them more susceptible to such. So this is a match with Rey Mysterio, who is, you would suppose, their attempt to appear cultural or culturally relevant to somebody. So these are a few of the moves which a directional thing is capable of, and that's what it looks like when somebody breaks out of a grapple. As you can see, the orange near the top, near the name, would indicate that their special bar is being depleted in order to accomplish that. Once they're in a grapple, you can also use physical moves, such as a standing clothesline and so on. These can be more effective during the beginning of the match. So, or when I say more effective, they're more likely to go through without being countered or escaped from and so on. So they might be worth using more when doing that. Before one can use other moves. When the special meter is full, you can use what's known as a finisher, which is effectively a signature move and so on in most other games, etc. It's basically a move which is very effective. It'll also increase their special meter by a fairly significant amount, because that is sort of increased by oppression. So if you want to be more special people, then be oppressed. That'd be good. So anyway, before this, as you'll see on the run involving hard, there are basically just tryouts, which is just you're forced to win 1 out of 3 matches. Obviously, the way that you would want to do that is probably to win all of them, but this is also that's basically what happens initially. But in this run, at least 2 of those matches were against this guy, so this is becoming a bit grating. That's why the variety was kind of useful. But anyway, that doesn't actually become a long-run thing on this level. So as you can see, they are countering out of a few moves, but we aren't really staying down for long enough for them to get that much in terms of moves while we're down and so on. At the same time, this kind of thing can be a bit dangerous if you let it happen too quickly, especially since especially on the hard levels, but even now you can have issues with that quite quickly. You will probably get damaged a fair bit faster than they would. So to rehearse, we have 2 finishers. This one, the one just used, was the last ride. That probably would have ended the match, but as you can see, their special meters fell, so that didn't happen. And that there's also the Tombstone Pile Driver, as it's called, which they have names. It's great. Which we used in a previous match. You'll probably see that plenty of times though, because in a sense it's also easier or less finicky to set up. So anyway, we'll find that out when it comes out. This is an example of a submission move that was slightly highness, but basically it is aiming for that, which is a submission, or in brief, it weighs them down or makes them unable to escape until they give up out of really something. At a certain point, do they count as part of the audience? Is that why they're giving up? Might be. Anyway. So that was to qualify for a tournament. So that's where we're at now. And